The ocean is a continuous body of saltwater that surrounds the continents. It is divided into 4 major regions: the Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, and Arctic. The ocean contains traces of all chemical elements found on Earth, but it tastes salty because of sodium and chloride ions in rainwater runoff and minerals from geothermal vents on the seafloor. Climate change is altering the ocean in 3 major ways. First, the ocean is getting warmer. The greenhouse effect not only warms the planet, but also raises the temperature of the world's oceans. Over the past century, the ocean's surface temperature rose at an average rate of about 0.13 degrees Fahrenheit per decade. And during the past 30 years, sea surface temperature has been consistently higher than at any other time on record. This warmer water vaporizes quickly, fueling stronger and more frequent storms. Higher temperatures also threaten delicate ocean life like coral reefs and disrupt the food chain, from krill to penguins to seals. Second, since 1993, the seas have been rising at a rate that's twice as fast as the long-term trend. Sea levels rise not only because water expands when it heats up, but also due to melting glaciers and ice sheets. Rising seas contribute to flooding on once dry land in coastal regions. A third consequence of climate change is ocean acidification. Seawater absorbs CO2 from the atmosphere, which lowers its pH and results in higher acid content. This reduces the concentration of calcium carbonate, which makes it difficult for species like oysters, clams, and corals to form shells or skeletons. The only way to stop the damage to our oceans is to dramatically reduce greenhouse gas emissions.
Do you know how much waste is thrown into the sea annually? If that waste affects human life, what do you think it will do to marine life? 8 billion of kilograms of garbage into the sea. Do you think there is any place in the sea where there is no garbage? No. Hi, I'm Leonardo Ramírez Trigos, and today I'm going to explain how climate change affects marine life. As you know a little bit about how climate change affects society, many people talk about how it impacts society, but have wondered how climate change affects the seas, oceans, marine animals, and all the marine life. Climate change is changing the conditions of life in all the seas of the planet. The temperature of the surface water is increasing and decreasing. Phytoplankton, the base of the whole chain, is decreasing and marine currents are changing. Many people worry about social problems. What will happen in the city or community? But they do not realize the oceans, because they are very important for life. 98% of the life is in the oceans, and it says that only 5% of the oceans have been explored. What happens when the temperature of the seas increase or decrease? First, animals that live outside their optimal thermal range spend more energy breathing to the detriment of the other functions. This weakens them and makes them more vulnerable to disease, making it easier for other species being adapted to the new temperature regimes to gain a competitive advantage. Increasing level of ocean acidity. The last year when I went to one of my favorite beaches, the inhabitants of that beach told us that the fish in the area had died, and there were no fish left in the coral place. And this was because the water had increased in acidity and affects the marine life of that place. The fishes died. About 30% of the carbon dioxide that is released in the atmosphere as level of atmospheric CO2 increase from human activity, such as burning fossil fuels. When CO2 is absorbed by seawater, a series of chemical reactions occur, resulting in the increasing concentration of hydrogen ions. This process has reaching implications for the ocean and the creatures that live there. With the burning of fossil fuels, the amount of CO2 emitted into the atmosphere has risen as well. Whenever the air meets the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide. Waves and other movements of the oceans aid in absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, just like the plants of land. Plants in the ocean absorb carbon dioxide. When water meets carbon dioxide, this forms carbonic acid. The oceans absorb 50% of the carbon dioxide generated by human beings. With the absorption of carbon dioxide into the oceans, the pH level in the oceans have dropped. As pH level drop, acidity rises. This means that the acidity of the world's oceans has risen. The acidification of our oceans will have an effect on both marine species and human beings alike. The increasing amount of coral bleaching is that we already lost 27% of the planet coral reefs. Scientists estimate that if we continue on this path, that figure will double in 30 years. That's tragic because I love the seas. Despite covering only 1% of the ocean, coral reefs are home to more than 25% of marine fish species. How do coral reefs die? It's simple. The coral reefs die lives in the tandem with algae. However, when the algae come out of the coral, due to all of the absorbed reasons, pollution, runoff, eutrophication, I think, the coral bleaches. The rising the sea temperature causes a breaching effect of the corals, forcing their marine populations to find new homes and food sources. And increasing temperatures also increase the amount of zooplankton in ecosystems, which through a domino effect negatively affects to the food chains. With that system, the phenomenon of coral bleaching has been a major problem in the oceans because of climate change, and this is extremely worrying for the planet. Without healthy corals in the ocean, there is no life, as thousands of marine lives depend on coral reefs to survive, including some species of sea turtles, fish, crabs, shrimps, jellyfish, seabirds, starfish, and many more according to the World Wildlife Fund. Objects such as bottle caps, straw bags, tampon application, broken toys, synthetic ropes and nets, unused fishing line are some of the most common objects found on the seashore almost anywhere on our coast in the world, in addition to affecting the aesthetics of the coastal environment. This object caused many problems for countless species of mammals, including like humans, reptiles, fish, and seabirds. Many of these objects of their fragments are ingested by animals, such as turtles and seabirds. These organisms can be smothered by mistaking them for food. There are some photos of the sea. The time I went to the beach and the fish dies, the coral were dying. They lost their beautiful colors and became black with gray. That was controlled, and now the corals and fish in that area return to their natural form and habitat. Imagine if that happened with the largest reservoirs of coral. We lost exotic animals, beautiful corals are extinguished. It was something ugly to go to my favorite beaches and not be able to see how beautiful it was before that happened. There are some more images. We must think about how climate change is affecting marine life. We doesn't realize it, but the poles are meeting, marine animals are dying, coral are bleaching. We must do something before climate change ends all of this.